Subscribe the Happy Life channel by Fayaz Author and press the bell icon for latest videos, updates and notifications.
Assalamu alaikum friends, this is Fayaz and you're watching the Happy Life channel. Welcome to this new video. Today in this video, we are going to talk about the terrorism against innocent Muslims. Friends, on 15th of March 2019, a terrorist named Brendan Tarrant attacked two mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand and killed more than 50 innocent Muslim worshippers and wounded more than 20 others. The terrorist Brendan Tarrant, said to be a Christian by faith and is an Australian-born New Zealand citizen. The terrorist Brendan Tarrant not only did this heinous crime against the innocent Muslims who were gathered there to offer Friday prayer, but he live streamed this terrorist act. This is the worst, brutal, and the most deadliest attack ever on innocent people, where the terrorists captured the whole scene on camera and live streamed the terrorist act. Today, media and the Western countries are not calling it terrorism. They are not calling it Christian terrorism. They are not calling these terrorists as Christian terrorists. Today, the Western governments and the Western media are saying that the terrorism and the terrorists have no religion. But at the same time, they forget to remember that they have been trying to link every terrorist as Islamic terrorist for more than 3 decades now. Why this double standard? Why, when it comes to Muslims, the media and the Western governments are linking it with religion? Even though Islam is the religion of peace and prohibits its followers to kill any innocent human being, whether a Muslim or non-Muslim. Today, the Western governments, media are not calling it Christian radicalism. They are not calling it Christian extremism. They are saying that it has nothing to do with the religion. It only exposes their double standard. If a terrorist has no religion, why the West and the media blame Islam all the time? When 9/11 took place in America, in which America accused Osama for the attacks, who was a Saudi citizen and was in Afghanistan at that time, without any proof and consent from the United Nations, America and NATO forces invaded Afghanistan and killed tens of thousands of innocent people there, including women and children, just because of one person, Osama, even though he was not an Afghan citizen. And nations around the world were justifying all those innocent killings. What was the crime of those tens of thousands of innocent people who got killed in Afghanistan by American and NATO forces? They never attacked America. They never killed any American. They even did not know how America is, because they never went to America. Yet their precious lives and their country has been destroyed by America and its allies very brutally. Isn't it the genocide of the Muslims than what it is? Isn't it the crime against humanity than what it is? Today, innocent Muslims are being tortured, oppressed, and butchered ruthlessly everywhere. But no one doesn't care. Today, Muslims are the worst victims of the terrorism, yet they have been labeled as terrorists. We have seen how innocent Muslims have been oppressed and butchered brutally in Palestine by Israeli terrorist forces, but no one is there to save the precious lives of the Palestinian people. We have seen how the historical cities of Aleppo and Idlib in Syria had been completely wiped out by the Russian airstrikes. And we have seen how millions of innocent people got killed brutally by American and NATO forces in Iraq. But no one calls it terrorism. And we have seen how tens of thousands of innocent people got killed by French and American forces in Libya. but no one called that terrorism against Muslims. Tens of thousands of innocent people were ruthlessly butchered and burnt alive in Myanmar by Buddhist terrorist forces. But world maintains its criminal silence over this genocide against the innocent Muslims. Today, killing an innocent Muslim is not a crime, and in fact, a person is called a hero if he kills a Muslim. United Nation is playing a very shameful role today. This organization has lost its all credibility and respect. Today, the United Nations organization is nothing but a Western made. It only works to protect and promote the interest of the West. Since 1945, when the United Nations organization was founded, this organization has only saved the interest of the West and few other powerful nations. This organization has failed, and it has failed miserably to give justice to the weak and poor nations, especially to the Muslims. Despite there are more than 50 independent and sovereign Muslim countries around the world, not a single Muslim country has a permanent membership in the United Nations Security Council. Currently, there are only 5 permanent members in the United Nations Security Council, and those 5 members are America, Russia, China, France, and Britain. These are the 5 permanent members. Despite there are more than 1.59 billion Muslims around the world, Muslim community is the second largest community in the world, but they have no role in the world affairs. Today Muslims are divided. They are busy fighting with one another. Their enemies want them to remain divided, and they don't want them to get united, because their enemies know that if Muslims get united, then they can never be defeated, invaded, and oppressed. Today, tens of thousands of Muslim prisoners are staying in worst conditions in different notorious jails around the world. In Guantanamo Bay jail in Cuba, in Abu Ghraib jail in Iraq, in Bagram jail in Afghanistan, and so on, where the Muslim prisoners were being tortured, humiliated by the American and NATO forces. According to Shakir Amir's diary, one of the Guantanamo Bay prisoners who was held by the American forces in Guantanamo Bay for more than 13 years without a charge or trial, Shakir Amir wrote in his diary, and I quote, "I am dying here every day, mentally and physically. This is happening to all of us. I have kidney problems from the filthy yellow water. I have lung problems from the chemicals they, Americans, spread all over the floor. I'm already arthritic at 40 because I sleep on a steel bed, and Americans use freezing air conditioning as a part of the interrogation process. I have eyes that are ruined from the permanent 24 hours a day fluorescent lights. I have tinnitus in my ears from the perpetual noise. I have skin diseases from chemicals and never been allowed to see the sun. I have ulcers and almost permanent constipation from the food. I have been made paranoid so that I can trust nobody, even my lawyers, because Americans play with my mind. I would like to die quietly by myself. I want no feeding, no forced tubes, no help." And friends, this is exactly what is happening to the Muslim prisoners around the world. It exposes the worst terrorism of the West against Muslims all around the world. Even in April 2005, the Parliament, Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe adopted Resolution 1433, which stated that through its actions in Guantanamo Bay prison, the United States government has betrayed its own highest principles by subjecting many, if not all, detainees to cruel, inhuman, or degrading as a direct result of official policy authorized at the highest levels of government. Bagram jail in Afghanistan was the primary repository for the prisoners captured in Afghanistan. According to the Mozambique, who was one prisoner at Bagram jail for 11 months prior to being rendered to Guantanamo Bay in January 2003, he stated, and I quote, "The noise was deafening. Barking dogs, relentless verbal abuse, plane engines, electricity generators, and screams of pain from other prisoners. Maybe I screamed too. I felt knees pushing hard against my rib, cage and legs, and crushing down on my skull simultaneously. I was not sure how many were on me, perhaps 3. I felt the shackles being undone from the ankles, and then I felt a cold, sharp metal object against my legs. The Americans were using a knife to slice off all my clothes. I felt the cold even more. Though the humiliation was worse, Mozambique says that he was subjected to a number of interrogation techniques. He stated the facility at the Bagram jail contained isolation rooms, and ear-splitting heavy metal tracks were played to new detainees as part of a sleep deprivation program. Friends, the stories of Muslim prisoners are just harrowing and leave no doubt that the techniques used by the American forces could amount to several mental or physical sufferings. Consider, for instance, the case of prisoner 063 Muhammad al-Qatani. According to the BBC 21 February 2006 report at news.bbc.co.uk/1/hi/world/Americans, and according to the Amnesty report 13 May 2005 at www.amnesty.org/en/library/info/amr51/063/2005. Al-Khatani was taken to Guantanamo Bay, where he was detained and interrogated in October 2002. Dogs were reportedly brought to the interrogation room to growl, bark, and bare their teeth at Al-Khatani, a technique later authorized in the White House memos as a means to exploit individual phobias. From November 23, 2002, Al-Qatani was reportedly interrogated for 20 hours a day for 11 days by interrogators working in shifts. Al-Qatani was kept awake with music, yelling, loud white noise, or brief opportunities to stand. Al-Qatani was also subjected to 50 days of sleep deprivation, during which he was not permitted to sleep more than 4 hours a day. He was reportedly stripped, nagged, taunted, and told that his mother was a whore and placed on a leash. Al-Qatani was also allegedly deprived of heat and ultimately developed hypothermia. He was forced by the American forces to urinate in his clothing. Interrogators also reportedly used transgressions against Islamic and Arab standards for sexual modesty. For instance, he was reported that he was forced to wear a bra and a woman's thong was put on his head. He was forced to stand naked with women soldiers present. His head and beard were shaved to show the dominance of the Americans. He was made to stand for the American national anthem and was not allowed to honor prior times. In January 2004, an investigation was undertaken by the American Armed Forces into the detention facilities in Iraq. The resulting report, written by Major General Antonio M. Taguba, simply known as the Taguba Report, uncovered sadistic, blatant, and wanton criminal abuses by American forces in Abu Ghraib jail in Iraq. The initial report concluded that the American forces had utilized techniques such as breaking chemical lights and pouring the phosphoric liquid on detainees, threatening detainees with a 9mm pistol, pouring cold water on nacked detainees, beating detainees with a broomstick and a chair, threatening male detainees with rape, allowing a military police guard to stitch the wound of a detainee who was injured after being slammed against the wall in his cell, sodomizing a detainee with a chemical light and perhaps with a broomstick, using military working dogs to frighten and intimidate detainees with threats of attack. This has been the most brutal and inhuman American official policy against Muslims around the world for decades now. This is the cruel face of American terrorist forces. This is the real face of the Western terrorism against innocent Muslims around the world. After a worldwide criticism and embarrassment, on January 22, 2009, an executive order 13492 was signed by the then President Barack Obama to review the disposition of individual detainees at the Guantanamo Bay and closure of the detention facilities. But it was just a fake order, a lie. Despite Obama came to power for 2 consecutive terms, but he did not keep his promise to close down the world's most worst and notorious jail, Guantanamo Bay. On January 13, 2018, the American President Donald Trump signed an executive order 13842 in which he directed the officials to keep open the Guantanamo Bay detention camp and permitted the additional detainees to be transported to the prison. Friends, for the last 5 decades, Muslims around the world have been the worst victims of the terrorism. Muslims have been oppressed, tortured, terrorized, imprisoned, and butchered everywhere in the world. Today, Muslims are suffering everywhere, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Yemen, in Kashmir, in Somalia, in Myanmar, and in many other parts of the world. American, NATO, Russian, and Israeli forces and governments are doing worst kind of terrorism against the helpless Muslims. Yet the world's shameless, biased, and paid media is doing all the fake and negative propaganda against the Islam and Muslims. Media is doing its best to malign Islam and Muslims. Media is not letting any stone unturned to portray Muslims as radicals, extremists, and terrorists. Today, America, Israel, Russia, and their allies are invading Muslim countries at will. They don't care about the human rights. They don't care about the UN Charter. They don't care about the Geneva Convention. Today, Muslims seems to be helpless. They are unable to stop this terrorism and oppression against them. Why? Because Muslims are divided. They lack unity. They are misguided. They don't have a strong, committed, and honest leadership. They don't have a strong, organized media which can represent their voices, which can represent their pains, miseries, and sufferings. Today's selfish, coward, and corrupt Muslim leaders don't care about the Muslim Ummah. They don't care about how Muslims are being butchered everywhere. And in fact, these crooks are even helping, supporting, and facilitating the West to destroy the Muslim Ummah in order to remain in power with the American support and receive dollars from the America. Today's Muslim leaders don't want Muslims to get united. They want them to remain divided for their own personal and political gains. Even some Muslim religious leaders are dividing Muslims in the name of different sects. Muslims must understand that this sectarianism and divisions are not going to solve their problems. It will make their problems even worse. The only way forward for Muslims is that they must get united and must have a collective voice so that they can protect themselves from the enemies of Islam. Muslim nations should create a strong military bloc like NATO to defend their nations' sovereignty, integrity, and freedom. Wealthy Muslim nations should give financial help to the poor and weak Muslim nations. Muslims must demand a complete overhauling of the United Nations because this institution has become outdated and is working for just few powerful nations. And every nation should get a permanent membership in the United Nations. United Nations must never allow any its member nation to attack and invade any other nation without having a fair, legitimate, and proved reason to do so. The use of all kinds of weapons of mass destruction like nuclear weapons, aerial strikes, missiles, heavy tanks, chemical weapons, and other destructive weapons should be banned everywhere in the world because that is the only way forward to have peace and stability in this world. Muslims should demand a permanent membership in the United Nations Security Council. And now, I would like to share few words with my non-Muslim brothers and sisters. Dear brothers and sisters, Islam is the religion of peace, and Muslims are not your enemies. Muslims are very kind, humble, and peace-loving people. Do not listen to your media and politicians because they don't want you to know the reality. They don't want you to access the facts. They just want you, they just want to mislead you for their personal and political benefits. I request you to study Islam. I request you to study the glorious Quran. Inshallah, you will be surprised to know the beauty of Islam. You will be amazed to know how peaceful the religion of Islam actually is. Allah says in the glorious Quran, in Surah Maida, chapter 5, verse 32, Man qatala nafsan bigayri nafsin aw fasadin fil arz faka'annama qatla an-nasa jami'a wa man ahyaha faka'annama ahyan nasa jami'a. Whosoever killed a human being, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, unless it be for murder or for spreading corruption in the land, it is as though he had killed the whole of humanity. And if anyone saved any human being, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, it is as though he has saved the whole of humanity. This verse of Quran alone is sufficient to prove that Islam is against killing of any innocent human being, whether Muslim or non-Muslim. My dear non-Muslim brothers and sisters, Islam is the religion of peace. It prohibits its followers to kill any innocent human being, whether Muslim or non-Muslim. Muslims around the world are the worst sufferers and victims of the terrorism initiated by the Western governments. If you study the Islam, if you study the glorious Quran, if you study the life of beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, you will surely understand everything about this peaceful and beautiful religion. So friends, if you like this video, please share it with your nearest and dears because we always over knowledge and experience to others. I wish you all the best for your future. Thanks for watching this video. Have a nice time and stay blessed.